Hello, this is influence of stress on clicking malicious links. So I want to start by saying why I chose to study stress and phishing, or the correlation between stress and phishing. Phishing attacks are a major cybersecurity threat costing billions annually. They involve human behavior, which is very variable, which makes it an extremely hard pain point to target for companies when it comes to cybersecurity, because every single person can be different. But human behavior, especially under stress, influences susceptibility to phishing. Approximately 98% of cyber attacks involve social engineering tactics, such as calling into a help desk line and pretending to be somebody else, or attempting to get someone to click on a malicious email link. According to Verizon's 2023 report, 10% of security incidents and 17% of data breaches were caused by social engineering. And the average organization is targeted by more than 700 social engineering attacks annually. Whether that statistic includes repeat emails of the same email to multiple different people, I'm not too sure, but it sounds to be about in the correct ballpark. So, it's found that everyday stress may impair decision making, increasing risky clicks on malicious links. I thought that because phishing and specifically social engineering is such a variable, I guess kind of like a broad thing that can be attacked. Stress as itself being an indicator or the susceptibility to clicking malicious links, I thought was extremely interesting. Understanding this link will help to improve cybersecurity training and awareness. And personally, at my place of employment, we see many phishing scams weekly. Many people report them, but many people don't, and many people also fall for them. So my research question and objectives is going to be, does induced stress increase the likelihood of clicking on malicious links and emails compared to a relaxed state? For this experiment, I felt like measuring the ability to click a phishing email opposed to falling for a cybersecurity, I suppose like social engineering cold call, something along those lines. A phishing email attack I felt would be much easier to measure and have far less variability per person. The objectives would be quantifying the effect of stress on phishing susceptibility, identifying behavioral patterns under stress for cybersecurity training, and to propose interventions to mitigate stress-related risks and essentially hope to cut down on these phishing attacks. So for my experiment methodology, I proposed that we'd have about 100 adults randomly assigned to a stress or a control group. Each adult will be tasked with being each group at least twice in a very rapid manner. The stress group will complete a timed cognitive task to induce stress, something like doing a lot of different math problems back to back to back and being graded upon that. The control group will engage in neutral tasks such as reading, and then after that, both groups then receive 10 simulated emails with malicious links in a safe environment. I propose that the only way that this type of experiment setup would work is if the participants obviously have no clue what is going on. Maybe proposing some type of like reward in regards to if they were to do it correctly would yield good results. So then they would all have the incentive, such as like receiving a paycheck from a company, the same incentive to do well and be rewarded. The variables being measured are going to be the stress level and the click rate on malicious links. I also wanted to touch on how data collection would be completed. We would be recording the clicks of the malicious links in a secure database. We'd also like to collect the demographic data to explore moderating factors between individuals, such as like age or susceptibility based on personality type, possibly. And then also just use self-reported stress levels post-task for validation. That would be our independent variable. For measurement, our primary metric is the percentage of participants clicking at least one malicious link. So on to addressing a behavioral cybersecurity gap. Phishing susceptibility is studied quite often, but I found that not many focus on the cognitive factor of the people who are going through the phishing attacks experience. A lot of them mainly focus on financial impact and security impacts of the attacks, how the attacks are structured, and what the attackers want, mainly focusing on the company side of things and the effect these attacks have had on the organization, instead of focusing on the individuals and how possibly their environment or stress factors could lead to them being more susceptible to falling for these types of attacks. Within this study, I hope to bridge that gap by examining emotional states in cybersecurity decisions and possibly finding out how if a stressful work environment could contribute to more successful phishing scams. So the expected outcomes and my hypothesis about the experiment is the hypothesis would be the stress group will have a higher click rate on malicious links than the control group, and the stress group will respond faster, indicating impulsivity. I think that when an individual is stressed and they understand that there is a reward on the line, they will come to be punished if they were to perform poorly. I think they have a tendency to make more irrational and quick decisions. In the expected outcomes, I expect a significant difference in click rates, highlighting stress as a risk factor. That is from self-reported from the groups, and then some insights into demographic variations. I mainly believe that there will be some demographic variations based on age. One, due to phishing knowledge probably being higher within the younger group due to being more adept at technology, but also I do believe that stress may possibly be less of a factor in the older age demographic, which will be an interesting contrast. And I hope that this study validates the need for stress-aware cybersecurity training. One thing I wanted to touch on that I found for researching is there are two individuals called Richard Lazarus and Susan Folkman. They created a transactional model of stress and coping, and essentially this model exists with an individual identifying a cognitive stress, creating a coping mechanism, and then assessing if that coping mechanism were to work. And the idea of this model is that is how a human addresses stress. But I believe that in a phishing attack, and especially in a high-paced environment, human beings will not have the full time to go through with this process, and they won't be able to determine if something is threatening or how they will cope with it, or they may not even be able to identify it as threatening in the first place. Which means essentially that if you were to put an individual in an environment where they are given many tasks sequentially, extremely quickly, basically inducing a sort of stress on them to finish their tasks, not just finish them, but finish them correctly and quickly, the individual will be more susceptible to clicking phishing links. They will be more susceptible to making mistakes that they didn't mean to make. So essentially what the study is aiming to do is to mainly look at how stress and how job expectations on an individual will increase their ability to fall for these phishing scams, particularly in companies or organizations where performance and I guess time are extremely valued. And here is my works cited. Thank you for listening.